Each chamber was carved from obsidian and reinforced with alloys stolen from conquered civilizations. Every surface shimmered with the trophies of predators, fangs, skulls, and shattered weapons displayed as proof of supremacy. Seated in a crescent around the black dais, the warlords of the Galactic Council waited, each a sovereign of a death world, each certain of his place at the peak of all life. Karoth of the Droxel towered above the rest, his frame armored by nature in serrated scales that glistened like wet stone. His claws, as long as a soldier's forearm, drummed against the stone table, an impatient rhythm that echoed through the chamber. "There are no rivals," he growled, his voice guttural, more vibration than speech. "The prey of this galaxy tremble before us. No species has endured our tests. We are, and always shall be, the pinnacle." Opposite him, the Velker assassin Lord Valen leaned forward, his silhouette lithe, almost serpentine. His movements were precise, his whispering tone carrying farther than Karoth's roar.
True.
Yet the hunt grows stale. To slaughter herbivores and frail tool users offers no thrill. I long for prey that fights back with cunning. I long for prey that knows fear even as it bares its fangs. His golden eyes glimmered, as if daring the others to challenge his claim. The Thrakon war chieftain Garrick slammed a spiked fist into the table, cracking the stone. His hide bristled with quills that rattled like blades in the wind. Cunning? Tricks?
Bah.
Nothing matches raw dominance. When I stride onto a battlefield, entire armies scatter. I crush their bones beneath my heels, and I feel the world submit. That is true apex power. The council chamber reverberated with growls, hisses, and guttural laughter as each Deathworlder boasted of his conquests. They traded stories of worlds burned, of hunts where they tore prey limb from limb, of opponents who had begged for mercy before being consumed. It was less a debate and more a ritual, each predator marking his place on the hierarchy of terror. Yet, as the noise subsided, a smaller figure rose. Though shorter in stature than the monstrous warlords, Counselor Dravik carried himself with the authority of one who had survived countless challenges. His body bore scars across his pale, ridged skin, each one a testament to a life spent in violence. He raised a clawed hand, and the chamber quieted. "There are whispers," Dravik said, his voice sharp and deliberate. "A species, young, barely beyond the infancy of spaceflight. Their world is a death world, though not marked as such in our records. The planet is called Earth." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Karatha's lip curled into a snarl. Garrick scoffed openly. Valen only smiled faintly, as if savoring the taste of an unknown challenge. Dravik continued. "Reports say these humans, as they call themselves, are fragile to the point of absurdity. Their bones break easily, their flesh tears without resistance, and they lack the natural weapons bestowed upon us. Yet they spread. They fight among themselves with a ferocity that rivals our kind. They have survived countless wars, poisons, predators, and disasters on their homeworld, not by strength, but by sheer refusal to perish." Karoth slammed a claw into the table hard enough to scatter shards across the floor. "Fragile prey. Nothing more. They will be consumed as all others have been." Valen tilted his head, his thin lips curling into something between amusement and hunger. "Or perhaps they will provide sport. Tell me, Dravik, did your sources mention how they fight? With teeth? With claws?" "With neither," Dravik replied. His scarred features tightened, as though recalling something unpleasant. "They use their minds. They turn stone to blades, fire to weapons, and metal to machines. They adapt. If they lack claws, they create them. If they lack venom, they brew it. If they fall, they rise again. I have seen their eyes in the footage recovered from skirmishes at the frontier. They do not flee. They do not surrender. They stare into death as if it is an old companion." For the first time in many cycles, silence settled over the chamber. Even Garrick's quills lay flat. Then Karoth laughed, a booming, thunderous sound. "Machines? Tools? Crutches for the weak. If they dare, let them come before me without their toys." I will snap them in half with a single strike. Perhaps, Dravik said softly. But remember this. Prey that refuses to die ceases to be prey. It becomes something else. The counselors exchanged glances, the air thick with unease cloaked in bravado. Finally, Garrick bared his jagged teeth in a grimace that might have been a smile. Let's test them. Send raiding bands. If these humans are prey, they will fall quickly. If not, he let the thought hang in the air, unfinished but heavy. Yes, Valen whispered, his eyes bright with anticipation. Let us hunt them. If they survive, we will know if they are worthy of the title predator. Karoth snarled in agreement, and the council erupted in approval. The decision was sealed. Humanity would be tested, their strength measured against the fiercest hunters in the galaxy. Only Dravik remained silent, his eyes narrowing as if peering into a future the others refused to see. At last, he spoke, his words like a blade cutting through the thunder of approval. You boast of power, of conquest, of your right as predators. But I warn you, I have seen their eyes, and I tell you this. If humans rise to meet us, they will not stop until one of us is extinct. The council chamber fell quiet again, the shadows deepening around the warlords. Each of them dismissed the warning with a laugh, a growl, or a sneer. Yet beneath their arrogance lingered a chill, a whisper none of them could quite silence. Far across the void, on a blue and green world spinning in the dark, mankind stirred. And the galaxy, though it did not yet know it, was about to learn the meaning of true predators. The Velker raiding ship descended upon the colony with the arrogance of seasoned hunters. Its obsidian hull cut through the upper atmosphere, shedding streaks of fire as it fell. To the Velker commander, this was not an invasion but a culling. The humans were assumed fragile, their defenses primitive. A new world, easy prey, nothing more than a testing ground for their blades. On the surface, the colony stirred. A settlement of steel and concrete clung to the rocky plain, its domes lit by the pale glow of dusk. Farmers dropped their tools. Miners abandoned their excavators. They all turned to the sky as the alien vessel pierced the clouds, dread crawling like ice through their veins. And then the alarm blared, a harsh, metallic scream that drove every man into motion. At the center of the commotion stood Captain Marcus Hale. Tall, broad-shouldered, his face weathered and marked by the scars of old battles, he had once been Special Forces. Now he served as the colony's defense commander, though many thought the title little more than symbolic. No one had believed real war would reach this far. Yet when Hale saw the silhouette of the Velker craft, his expression betrayed no fear, only grim recognition. Get the civilians underground, he barked, voice like gravel dragged across steel. Every able-bodied man with a weapon on me. We hold the line here. His men scrambled into position. They were miners, farmers, engineers, but under Hale's command they moved with a soldier's discipline. Old rifles, shotguns, and a handful of repurposed mining charges became their arsenal. It was crude, but Hale knew war was not always won with sophistication. It was won with will, and with the ability to endure longer than the enemy. The Velker landed with predatory grace. The ramp hissed open, and armored figures emerged, tall, sinewy warriors draped in obsidian armor that shimmered like oil. Their blades were curved and cruel, forged for the artistry of killing. They advanced as though entering a feast, their movements calm, deliberate, certain of victory. Hale studied them with the patience of a hunter sizing up prey. He saw how they scanned the field, how they relished the tension, how they expected fear. He gave them nothing. Steady, he muttered, his men clenching their weapons tighter. They bleed. Remember that. Everything bleeds. The first Velker charged. His speed was inhuman, his blade an arc of silver in the fading light. He struck down a defender before the man could raise his rifle. Yet in that heartbeat of triumph, Hale moved. He slammed his shoulder into the alien's chest, driving him back onto a concealed mine charge. The explosion tore through armor, shredding flesh, leaving a blackened crater where the Velker had stood. The others hissed in outrage, their perfect hunt stained by the indignity of loss. But the humans had already scattered, drawing them into narrow alleys, where hidden traps awaited. Tripwires, sharpened steel, explosives made from mining fuel. Every path was a gauntlet. For each human that fell, another alien was dragged screaming into the dirt. Hale fought like a man possessed. His rifle barked fire until the barrel glowed, then he wielded it like a club. Blood streaked his face, his arm hung heavy with a fresh wound, but his eyes blazed. He roared defiance at the towering predators, and his men echoed him with a ferocity that unnerved their foes. A Velker raider, taller than the rest, pinned Hale against a wall, blade sinking into his side. The captain's vision blurred, his body screaming in pain, but he refused to yield. With a guttural growl, he seized the alien by the throat, driving a knife through the joint of its armor. The Velker writhed, snarled, then collapsed, choking on its own blood. Hale pulled the blade free and staggered to his feet, his breath ragged but his stance unbroken. The Velker commander, watching from the ramp, began to understand. These humans did not scatter as prey. They fought like predators defending their den. They did not cower at wounds. They seemed to grow more savage the more they bled. It was not the precision of their weapons nor the strength of their bodies that unsettled him. It was their will, the refusal to die quietly. By nightfall, the surviving raiders retreated to their ship, dragging their wounded behind them. Hale stood amid the ruin, surrounded by the broken forms of friend and foe alike. His men were bloodied, diminished in number, but victorious. The air reeked of smoke and iron, a victory bought with suffering. The Velker commander gave a final look at the human captain, his eyes narrowing with something not unlike fear. The man stood upright despite his injuries, his expression defiant, his presence radiating a primal warning, "Come again, and pay in blood." The ship ascended, vanishing into the night sky, leaving only silence in its wake. Hale lowered his knife and exhaled slowly, the weight of survival pressing against his shoulders. He knew the battle was only the beginning. If they had come once, they would come again. And next time, the test would be greater. Far from the colony, across the void, the Droxel warlord Karoth received word of the Velker failure. The report was brief, the details muddied, but the conclusion undeniable. Humans had faced the hunt and endured. A sneer spread across his monstrous features. "Fragile prey," he rumbled to his lieutenants.
No.
"They are predators who wear fragile skins." Others in the council began to murmur the same. The whispers spread, faster than light, carried on every channel, every intercepted signal. Humans were dangerous. They fought with the madness of creatures who had never learned how to yield. In the dark of space, Commander Elias Cade prepared his fleet. Unlike Hale, he was no soldier-turned-guardian, but a tactician bred for war. The first clash on the ground had been brutal. The next, in the void, would test not just resilience but human ingenuity. And somewhere, deep within the memory of every warlord who had ever sat upon the council, a question stirred. What happens when prey refuses to accept its place? The council chamber was louder than it had ever been. News of the Velker defeat had spread like wildfire, and the warlords filled the air with arguments, accusations, and disbelief. For predators who had spent entire lifetimes certain of their supremacy, the idea that humans had not only survived but forced a retreat was intolerable. Some demanded immediate annihilation. Others called for deeper study, while a few, with voices quieter but sharper, suggested caution. Karoth, the Droxel warlord, silenced them all with a roar that shook the obsidian walls. His scaled form loomed, eyes burning with fury and pride. "Enough," he snarled. "We bicker like carrion feeders. These humans have taken one victory, and you tremble as if the stars themselves will fall. I will prove what they are. I will break their champion before your eyes, and their illusion of strength will die with him." The challenge echoed across the galaxy, transmitted through official channels and intercepted signals alike. The Droxel warlord demanded single combat, a duel before the council, a trial by blood that would strip humanity of its growing legend. Humanity, to the astonishment of all, accepted. The man who answered the call was Colonel Adrian Locke. He was not the largest, nor the strongest of Earth's defenders, but his reputation preceded him. A career soldier, his name was whispered with reverence among veterans, unflinching in battle, relentless in pursuit of victory, a man whose will was carved from iron. He arrived at the appointed place not with ceremony but with a quiet stride, his presence carrying the weight of inevitability. The arena was hewn from black stone, ancient and vast, where countless challenges had ended in carnage. The seats were filled with warlords and spectators from across the galaxy, their voices a low growl of anticipation. In the center stood Karath, a living mountain of armored scales and clawed limbs, his venomous saliva hissing as it struck the ground. Opposite him walked Locke, unarmored save for the simple plating of human design, a broken scar bisecting one side of his face. His weapon was a single blade, plain and utilitarian, nothing compared to the ceremonial monstrosity Karath carried. The warlord's laughter rumbled through the arena. This is the best Earth can muster? A scarred old male with dull steel? I will crush him, and his blood will soak these stones. Locke met his gaze without flinching. You've killed prey, he said, his voice low but carrying. You've never fought men. The signal sounded, and Karath lunged. His claws tore through stone, his body moving with terrifying speed for something so large. Locke twisted aside, the warlord's strike missing him by inches. He did not counter immediately. He watched, gauged the rhythm of his opponent, his eyes sharp and calculating. Karath pressed forward, each blow shaking the arena, each swing of his venom-tipped claws promising instant death. Locke parried where he could, dodged when he must, and absorbed punishing glancing strikes that would have felled lesser men. Blood streaked his side, his breath grew ragged, but still he moved with purpose, conserving his strength, waiting. The crowd roared with every strike, expecting the human to crumble. Yet with each minute, their anticipation shifted to unease. Locke did not fight like prey. He endured like stone beneath a storm. Finally, Locke found his opening. As Karath swung wide, overextending, Locke drove his blade into the joint between armor plates at the warlord's elbow. Black blood spurted, hissing as it struck the ground. Karath howled in rage, his fury redoubling. He battered Locke with a clawed fist, sending him sprawling, bones cracking from the impact. The human lay still for a heartbeat, the crowd believing it finished. But then Locke rose. Slowly, agonizingly. He pushed himself upright, blood dripping from his mouth, one arm hanging useless. His eyes locked onto Karath with unbroken resolve. He spat crimson onto the stones and lifted his blade again. The warlord faltered. It was only a fraction of a second, but it was there, a hesitation. He had fought countless battles, killed countless foes, but never had he faced one who refused to yield when broken. That hesitation cost him. Locke charged. His movements were not elegant but savage, driven by a force beyond survival. He ducked beneath a swipe meant to cleave him in half, rolled forward, and drove his blade into the soft tissue beneath Karath's chin. With a roar that shook the arena, the warlord staggered back, clawing at the blade lodged in his throat. Locke clung to the weapon, twisting, forcing it deeper. With one final wrench, Karath collapsed, his massive form shaking the ground. Silence fell across the arena. The Droxel warlord, undefeated for decades, lay dead at the hands of a human. Locke pulled his bloodied blade free, standing over the corpse as the black ichor pooled at his feet. He did not raise his arms in triumph, nor cry victory. He simply stood, chest heaving, gaze unyielding, as if daring the next predator to come forward. The counselors shifted uneasily in their seats. Valen's golden eyes flickered with something approaching admiration, while Garrick's quills bristled in disbelief. Dravik, watching from the shadows, allowed himself the smallest of nods, as though the future he had foreseen was now undeniable. For the first time in living memory, the predators of the galaxy found themselves unsettled. Humanity had not only survived the hunt, but had slain one of their greatest with nothing but flesh, steel, and an unbreakable will. The legend of fragility was shattered. Locke left the arena without a word, his step steady despite his wounds. Behind him, whispers spread through the crowd like fire leaping from tree to tree. If one man could bring down a monster like Karath, what would an army of such men accomplish? The question lingered in every mind, gnawing at certainty, undermining arrogance. And though none would admit it aloud, every warlord felt the same cold truth settling in their bones. The humans were not prey. They were predators. And predators, once awakened, did not stop. The council convened under a silence that felt heavier than any weapon. The obsidian chamber, once filled with roars and boasts, now throbbed with unease. Karath's death hung over them like the shadow of a collapsed star, undeniable and suffocating. For the first time in their long dominion, the predators of the galaxy had seen one of their greatest fall not to a rival species of their own stature, but to a man of flesh and bone. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the chamber, his body bound in bandages that seeped faint traces of blood. He had been called not as a diplomat but as a symbol, dragged from the frontier to face the very beings who had sought to make humanity a footnote in their histories. His eyes, cold and deliberate, swept across the semicircle of alien warlords. He recognized fear beneath their facades, the twitch of a claw, the stiffening of quills, the stillness of serpentine tails. They had not expected him to come unbroken. Across the chamber, Elias Cade waited with the poise of a tactician. He had commanded the fleets that turned alien ambushes into pyres, each engagement a study in ruthlessness and unpredictability. Where Hale was raw defiance, Cade was precision incarnate. His gaze never wavered from the counselors, calculating every angle, every ripple of unease, as though even this gathering were a battlefield. Adrian Locke entered last, still bearing the scars of his duel. He walked without a limp, though the effort cost him. The wound across his ribs still ached with every breath, yet he betrayed no weakness. He had slain Karath, and his presence carried the weight of that truth. When his eyes found Hale's, the faintest nod passed between them, acknowledgement of shared purpose, of burdens neither could lay down. Dravik, scarred and gaunt, rose from his seat among the counselors. His voice cut through the chamber, brittle yet sharp. You know why they are here. You know what has been proven. Humanity was tested, and humanity has endured. They have bled, they have killed, and they have refused to bow. The question before us is not whether they are prey, but whether we can survive in a galaxy where they walk beside us. Murmurs rippled. Garrick bristled, his quills rattling with anger. Survive? They are fragile. They cannot endure centuries as we have. Their lives are brief sparks. Locke's voice broke the tension, low and steady. A spark can become fire. Fire can consume forests. Fire can burn until nothing remains. His words were not a boast, but a warning. Garrick faltered, quills lowering slightly, as if sensing the truth in them. Valen leaned forward, golden eyes gleaming. Perhaps they are predators, yes. But predators can be caged, studied, controlled. His whisper slithered into the silence, testing the air like a venomous fong. Marcus Hale finally stepped forward, his presence commanding without flourish. He spoke not as a politician but as a soldier who had buried too many of his own. You look at us and see fragility. You see flesh that tears, bones that break, lives that burn out too soon. And you are right. We are fragile. We are breakable. But you misunderstand what that means. We have lived every second of our existence knowing death waits at our shoulder. We fight not because we believe ourselves unkillable, but because we know we are already dying. That makes us dangerous in ways you cannot comprehend. The chamber stilled, every word sinking like a blade into armor. Hale's gaze swept across them, his scarred face etched with grim certainty. You thought yourselves predators because you kill until you are satisfied. Men kill because there is no other choice. We endure storms, famine, disease, each other. When the world itself tried to erase us, we adapted. When predators stronger than us hunted, we became hunters in return. We do not stop. We do not surrender. And if you force this war, we will not rest until nothing of you remains." His words struck like thunder. Some counselors bristled with outrage, others shifted with unease, but none could deny the cold gravity in his voice. Cade stepped forward then, his tone measured, analytical. "Understand this. We have already studied you. Every skirmish, every raid, every ship you sent has been dissected and catalogued. You believe yourselves masters of battle because of strength and tradition. We fight with unpredictability, with invention, with the ability to turn weakness into weapon. Already our fleets have adapted to your tactics. Already your patterns betray you. If you persist, we will not only outlast you, we will dismantle you piece by piece." Locke's voice followed, hard as stone. "And if you think to break us with fear, remember Karath. Remember what a single man did with nothing but steel and resolve. There are millions more like me. Millions who will bleed, and laugh, and rise again. Ask yourselves, how many of your champions can fall before your own kind begin to question who the predators truly are?" The weight of their words hung in the silence. For the first time, the counselors did not roar in anger or mock in arrogance. They sat still, their confidence shaken, their hierarchy shattered. Dravik, ever the observer, gave a slow nod. "It seems the matter is decided, whether you accept it or not. The galaxy has shifted. You may fight them and risk extinction, or you may accept them as what they are, predators who will not be denied." No one spoke against him. The silence itself was concession. Hale turned to leave, Locke and Cade falling into step beside him. They did not exchange words, for none were needed. Each bore the weight of humanity's new place among the stars. They had not sought this war, but it had come, and they would see it through. Behind them, the warlords sat in quiet dread, their boasts drowned by the echo of Hale's promise. The fragile prey they had mocked had revealed themselves as fire, and fire did not stop once it spread. As the chamber doors closed behind the three men, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, teetering on the edge of a new order. And in that silence, one truth rang louder than all the boasts of ages past. The apex had shifted, and Earth now stood at the summit.